service towards God when working for God. So not only our relationship, but with our service working for God and our commitments as well. So looking at D, we're not going to 2 Samuel chapter 7, verse 5 to 17. We're not going to read it because it's very long. But it says, according to this passage, it says, God made an unconditional covenant with David, separate from his covenants with Noah, Abraham, and Israel. So just to give a brief summary of what this Bible verse, 2 Samuel chapter 7, verse 5 to 17, is explaining. So this chapter is just showing three major themes or three major purposes. Number one is God elevating David from king of Judah to king of Israel. The second is sin has consequences. David's sin with Bathsheba damages his family and kingdom. And the third point is God remaining faithful. Even during rebellion, failure, and suffering, God continues to walk through David's life. In short summary, David rises to great power, falls through sin, and then faces painful consequences. Yet God's covenant with him remains. So even though David sinned, God's covenant still fulfilled through David. Even his descendants that came after him, when they sinned as well, God disciplined them. He didn't say, oh, because they sinned, then I'm going to destroy the covenant that I have with them. God disciplined them, and his covenant was still fulfilled. It was not broken. It was still fulfilled through them. So, and it says here that God made an unconditional covenant. Excuse me, unconditional covenant. So what do we mean by that? So we have two types of unconditional. We have conditional as well, and unconditional. So conditional, for example, is like when a mother is saying to a child that if you wash a car, or if you wash the car, I'm going to give you 10 euro. So I'm going to give you 10 euros. So the reward is on the condition. So that means it's conditional. But if it's unconditional, for example, let's say a child, the mother say, even though you wash the car or you don't wash the car, I'm still going to give you that 10 euro. So it's a conditional because the reward is not on the reward is not on the condition. So even though the child washes the car or not washes the car, he's still going to get that 10 euro. So what is that saying to us as we Christians? So we should have our love towards God should be unconditional, and God to love towards us too is unconditional. You know, God is not looking for something from us for him to connect with us. All he's looking at is our heart, making sure that our heart is with him and is connected with God. So along with so to link up with David, you know, David didn't have to give anything to God. Yes, he was a humble man, you know, he was faithful to God, you know, he showed honesty and loyalty through his service, but he didn't have to give anything for God to say, I'm going to use David. It was unconditional. God was not requesting something from David for God to use David. And that shows to us as we Christians that, you know, if we want something from God, we shouldn't just go to God because we want something. Let our connection, let our relationship be sincere towards God. You know, we have some people that when they request something from God, they get what they want from God, and then they leave God. They stop praying, they stop getting closer to God, they stop meditating, reading the Bible, because they believe that God has already given them what they want. As we as Christians, we should not have that type of heart, if genuinely we have a sincere heart towards God. So looking at part E, according to Psalm 89, verse 3 to 4, it says, God promised to establish David's descendants and build his throne, which is also taken from 1 Corinthians 22, verse 9 to 10, and 1 Corinthians chapter 28, verse 5 to 6. What a faithful God we serve. So the Bible passage recalls God's covenant promise to David. The psalmist celebrates God's faithfulness and reminds God's people that God keeps his promises across generations. So in part F, in conclusion, to truly experience God's covenant, we must prioritize intimacy with him, building a lasting relationship so his promises can be fully fulfilled in our lives. Our sincere service to God, excuse me, to God will leave a legacy that speaks long after we are gone. So even though we are gone, God's covenant is still going to be fulfilled through his people after we are gone. And part two, it's part two section, we're going to look at God's faithfulness to Davidic covenant, which is going to use the book of Psalm 89, verse 34 to 37, Psalm 132, 11 to 12, and Acts Apostles 2 to verse 22 forward. So those are the Bible verses we're going to use for reference for this section. So according to Acts Apostles chapter 2, verse 30, it says, therefore, being a prophet, I know that God has sworn with an oath to him that of the fruit of his body, according to the flesh, will raise up the Christ to sit on the throne, which is taken from the book of Acts Apostles chapter 2, verse 30. So what is this Bible passage explaining? It's explaining that Peter said that David was not only a king, but also spoke prophetically. God revealed future truths to him. So he also spoke prophetically. And what do we mean by speaking prophetically? He revealed the Jesus Christ. He revealed the messages of Jesus Christ, that Jesus Christ was going to come and he was going to die and his body was going to be risen. So this shows the relationship, the connection that David had with Jesus, the Messiah. And Peter said that David spoke prophetically. He wasn't just speaking out of his mind. He was speaking prophetically. So God has promised him an oath. This refers to God's covenant with David from 2 Samuel 7, where God promised that David's royal line would continue. And another thing that this Bible passage is explaining is that one of his descendants on his throne, Peter explains that this promise was ultimately fulfilled in Jesus, who came from David's family line and reigns as the true eternal king. So this is what this Acts Apostles 2 verse 30 is briefly explaining in summary. So looking at part A, again, looking at Psalm 89 verse 34, it says, God, the covenant maker and keeper. He didn't say God, the covenant maker only. God, the covenant maker and the keeper is always true to his promises, taken from the book of Acts 2 verse 29 to 37. This makes the Bible reliable. And enduring. So according to the Bible verse Psalm 89 verse 34 is explaining that God is a covenant maker and keeper. It shows that God never breaks his promise towards him and human beings. Once God says something, he remains faithful to it. He does not break it. And also God promised David that his descendants will continue to rule even after he was gone. He also promised David that his throne will be established forever, and he also promised David that the Messiah will come from his lineage, from his family line. So this is what this Bible verse is, part A is explaining. So looking at part B, so looking at the line of Psalm 89, verse 34 to 37, can someone open the book of Psalm 89, verse 34 to 37, and briefly read to us, please? So according to this passage, it says God watches over his covenants to ensure that they are perfectly fulfilled. His promises remain valid as long as we stay true to our path, though humans may falter. So this part B, it shows that God actively protects his covenants. Even though David's descendants sinned, God did not completely abandon his promise. What he did is that God instead, he disciplined them. But he did not cancel the covenant. He did not break the covenants that he made with them, but he disciplined them. So this is what this part is explaining to us. So as long as we Christians, we continue to stay true to our path. We continue to stay true with our relationship, with our honesty, with our devotion with Christ. God covenant is going to be fulfilled to us. We're going to see the goodness of God covenant that is waiting to this day on this earth. So looking at Psalm 132, according verse 11 to 12. Can someone read the book of Psalm 132, verse 11 to 12, please? Psalm 132, verse 11 to 12, please, ma'am. Amen. So, according to this Bible verse, it says, He honored his covenant with David by establishing his dynasty. What do you mean by dynasty? Dynasty is a Yoruba family. It explains is a Yoruba family line that continues across generations. So he honored his covenant with David by establishing his dynasty as Israel's rightful rulers for all generations. This part explains how God honored his promise to many kings from David's family, from David's line, that continually ruled Judah. This was important because the Yoruba line of David became the chosen line through salvation that will come to the world. And how was salvation came to the world? Was through the Messiah, Jesus Christ. So this part shows a lesson to all of us as Christians to always be patient in God's promises. Always be patient in God's promise, even if the fulfillment seems delayed. Some of us, we say that that God is not doing what I pray for. God is taking His time. I want it. When you want something from God, you say that because you don't get it, that maybe God is not with you or God is not fulfilling the purpose or the promise that He has for you. No, God promises is still fulfilling, even if it's delayed. It's still fulfilling. He is still working behind the scenes.